Welcome to Season 5 of Own Your Divine Light Show. I am your host, Yarra Atlantica Miller, also known as Janet Miller. And today our theme for this show is the Divine Human Rising. And this is recovering our sacred truth. And this show is an exploration of our sacred truths that have been concealed from us. We are letting go of this old system that no longer works and has held us back from becoming the divine humans we are meant to be. And today we are having the amazing and deeply spiritual Sheila Applegate. Sheila will be sharing her divine truth with us so that together we can activate that divine human rising. So welcome, Sheila. I'm so happy to have you with us today. Just really, really happy.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Sheila, I know you've had some amazing experiences when you were young, which led you into understanding why you're here, or just gave you some insight that you were here for something besides just the average lifestyle. And so you had experiences with your sister and, what your purpose was going to turn into. Like you had steps all through your young life into your, young adulthood. You want to tell us a little bit about those?
Sure. So I think going back early into my childhood, I always just had a sense of connection. And I was always exploring the different energies. And one memory I have is when I was a child, fairly young, I used to share a room with my sister. And when I would go to sleep, I would just rock back and forth in my mind. And then it would feel like I was moving. And then like in a hammock, it was sort of to put myself asleep. But then I realized I could kind of get myself to feel like I was hovering over my body. And I liked that. And so I kept exploring it. And I thought everybody did it. And one night I released further than I had. And I wanted to tell my sister, I think I went out of the house that night with it. And I went to tell my sister and I said, when you're floating outside of your body around the room, and she said, no. I was
of
like,
course.
Oh, that's not normal. So there were things like that happened throughout my life. I also had a real strong knowing of truth. And especially I think about in my childhood, I was raised in a church, a Lutheran church, and with a great community and a wonderful pastor. But I remember one time when I was a child, like elementary school, my dog died and I was having trouble with it and processing it. So my mom had me have a little session with my minister. And I remember sitting with him. It's so vivid. And he was explaining to me in a gentle way, because he was trying to comfort me, that, Misty wouldn't be going to heaven because Misty didn't have a soul. But, and I'm sure he said something very pleasant after that. But I remember just looking at him and saying, why would I want to go to a heaven that doesn't include animals like that? Yes. I'm not going to do that. And another time, as I got to understand things, and realize that they were saying, well, you have to have Jesus to go, you have to believe in Jesus to go to heaven. And I lived in a community with a lot of Jewish people. And I remember just being like, I'm not going to believe that Dayla's not going to heaven. Like, no, that doesn't make any sense to me. So that kind of knowing and exploring was a part of my childhood from an early time.
And this minister, was he a big part in the community? Because he really wasn't teaching a very spiritual way of looking at things. I mean, we know now, how.
Well, it's about we know now, because he was an amazing minister. He was one of my parents' best friends. He was a part of the family. I loved him. And I had a great church. And I even think now, looking back at it, that he was channeling a lot of his sermons. He had this incredible way of speaking, and he would often, not always, but at special times, he would embody, like he would do a whole sermon as if he was Jesus going through the process, or if he was one of the apostles, and he would just speak in first person and go through the whole thing of it. So I don't think it was so much that he was saying anything wrong. That's what the church believed at that point. And I think some churches are still, amazing how much we've grown as a
Yes.
collective
Yes.
in the time that I've been alive, even to realize how barbaric some of these things sounded that were natural. And I really think he was probably kind of struggling with that at the time. Clearly never had a dog, you know?
Yeah, right. But that was interesting how you were so aware that you would not want to be part of something that your dog didn't go to heaven. That's such a beautiful
Right.
understanding as a child. So what else did you what else happened in your life? I know you had some other adventures.
Yeah. There's another moment that's profound to me in high school. And we were in I was in a philosophy class. It was an elective. He was one of the best teachers. Like everybody wanted to get into this elective. And so I was so excited I was in it. And he would just give it's critical thinking today, being able to explore thoughts and ideas and see where your mind goes. And I remember one day, I can even imagine looking out the window, it was raining, and I know the classroom when I go back there. And he was asking the class to contemplate if there was life after death. And so again, at this point, I had already been kind of, I've always been questioning, but the whole creation story that I was taught as a child and accepted without really thinking about it till I got to biology class and earth science, and some of those things. And so my mind was putting science and spirituality together. And I had already been through one kind of level of how can I make that work the year before. But this time there was still some questioning about my beliefs, and I was watching all of the kids, some of them just vehemently, defending from their church perspective or synagogue, and others, exploring or denying it. And I'm looking around and the room was kind of spinning as everybody was discussing this, and my mind was spinning really. And then all of a sudden it went silent, and I knew I had the answer. And I raised my hand and I was like, we're never going to know if there's life after death or what happens after we die until we die. So either we're going to be dead and nothing is going to happen and we're not going to realize it because nothing happens, or something will happen and we will be a part of that and then we'll know it. So it's not so much important what we believe that we know. It's more important what we believe now and how it supports us in living. So I choose to believe in life after death because it makes me feel better about my life.
Yes. And that's so true, because I know a lot of people who don't believe necessarily in reincarnation, and it just shocks me. It's so it seems so old and out of sync with what I know as a spiritual person. Like, we live many lives. We don't just live this one life. Like, they think this is the one life.
Right.
They believe there's even multiple lives, and that just, I mean, it's so different than my thinking now, because
right now, I love that you're saying that, because as a kid too, that's another one of my memories that my mom was telling me about the neighbor across the street who believed in this thing called reincarnation. And so she was nice to her mice in her garage because she was thinking that one was her uncle. And I remember, again, a little kid on the couch looking at their house. We were looking out the window when we were talking about it. And I thought, well, I don't think her uncle is a mouse, but it does kind of make sense to me. Like, that was my first thought about it. And then we moved to when my daughter was real little in the car. We had just been in the store and we had seen somebody that had diabetes and had, she had gone from being vibrant in Sarah's 4 or 5 years of living to in a wheelchair without all her limbs. And she was talking about her. And she says, will she have her arms and legs in her next body? And I said, yeah, she probably will. And then she's like, Mommy, do you know that some people don't believe in reincarnation? And she goes, well, that makes no, she didn't say reincarnation. Do you know some people believe that they don't have any other lives? I'm like, yeah, I do know that. And she goes, well, that makes no sense because they've all had them.
That is out of the mouth of babes. I mean,
Right. It was
so-
like we were telling her that, telling a high schooler that kindergartners didn't exist or something.
right. I love even the memory, like you said, that maybe the uncle wasn't a mouse, but they say if we're going to start as a soul, we have to start at the beginning. I don't know if you believe that. I don't know if it's true, but it's like a new thought. We have to start as like a rock or something really simple.
Right.
And
I
develop
had
our
heard that
soul.
in my metaphysical training, that you sort of evolve from that. As I've moved on, I think that that's kind of egocentric on our part, like to
Is
think
it?
that we're more evolved than a rock. We really don't know. And I
I
certainly
don't.
don't think I'm more
Oh, I
evolved
love
than
how
the
you put
animals,
that. Yes. Well,
So
it's
I
just,
see it more
yes.
now as, did you see the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Yes, yes.
I see it like that rock one in the middle. That was so much peace. My daughter and I have a joke now that we might be rocks, like that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember doing a past life regression, my first one ever, and I was this giant blob
Oh, wow.
on a planet, and I'm like, that's me. I started as this giant, I don't know what I was, to tell you the truth, but I was this giant blob thing, and I only started as like a dark brown. I wasn't bad or good. I was just
Right. You just were.
sissy.
Well, I love that you said that, because Justin, my youngest child, so Justin hasn't been on Earth much at all. Justin said that they were here, touched down once with the dinosaurs, but then they had this life they really remembered, and they said they were on Pluto, and they were like air, but not really. That's
Ooh.
how they described their life. So I love that you just said that, because that's the life that my youngest child had.
And it's so powerful when we get those memories, because we know we have been everything or many things. I mean, we're meant to have existence through so many different experiences,
Right.
because we're meant to be sparks of God, creator, prime creator. And with that, then we are helping creator experience this and knowing more through our physical experiences, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's how I'm understanding it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, I mean, I don't know how many people think about those things, but to me, this is what we're moving into. There's so much more about ourselves that we've been and we will be. And
Right.
for you, I know you've been through just incredible experiences. I know I heard about an experience when you were with you were in England and you were living with a group of people. You want to share a little about that?
Yes, yeah. That is another profound point in my life for many reasons, but most people have heard of the bombing of Pan Am 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland. That was sort of one of the first major terrorist attacks that I think really affected
Yeah, that was so
us.
long ago.
I know. Well, I was one of the Syracuse University students who were studying abroad there, and 36 of my friends and classmates were on the plane.
Wow.
Um,
And you were not.
I was not. No, there were no survivors, but I was
I don't
not on the
remember the
plane. Yeah,
outcome,
I
but
know.
so
Yeah,
the
I was not
universe,
on the plane
yeah.
because I had a soulmate that was in England. I had done a high school exchange with a family, and we recognized each other as souls early on. So I was staying with them for Christmas. That's why I wasn't on the
Wow.
plane. Most people who, that was the plane that took most of us home, but some people stayed a few days extra. Some people stayed to travel during the time. So I do have some friends that survived because they weren't on the plane.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, but I was the only social work student to return. There weren't that many of us, but I was the only social work student to return. So I spoke at the memorial for the social work school and spoke about each of the people who had died, because this was a time before internet, right? So
Yes.
mail was slow. So, and phone calls were expensive. So the amount of time and contact that their families had with them and the last 5 months of their life was so small.
Oh, wow.
And so it was trying to fill in the pieces. And so Lindsay was one of my close friends who lived in Baltimore, and her family, I had just met her there. She actually wasn't an SU student, but she was able to go through the program. So I had just met her there and got close to her. And so I went to her family's for her memorial, and they invited me, and my sister went with me for comfort, I'm sure. And they invited us to stay in her house. So that day, I sat at the kitchen table with her mom and her dad and she had a lot of brothers and sisters. She was the youngest of a big family, and they came in and out, and I just shared the memories. And her backpack had just been delivered that day. Some of the things, some of their belongings survived it, some didn't. But her backpack was intact. And so she carried it everywhere in England. Like, I never saw her without her backpack, So, just like a smaller backpack, the carry-on thing. And so they had me go through every item in her backpack and try to put the pieces together for them. And it was pretty intense. And then that night I went to sleep in their guest room, which I'm sure was a sibling's room at one point. And she appeared to me on the bed. I could feel her sitting on the bed even as I saw her. And I was fine with it. I was very comfortable with her sitting there. We had a telepathic conversation. My sister was in a bed next to me. I didn't wake her at that point, but I did after, because Lindsay was talking about different things that we would with friends. And then she pointed out fabric in the room. She showed me an image of, like, there was a basket or a bag of fabric or something in the room that we were in. I didn't know what that meant. And then she asked me to tell her family that she was okay, and that it didn't hurt when she died. And that's when I got scared, and I didn't say yes to her. And in fact, that fear made her disappear. So then I was laying there, or made me not see her. Right? It's probably more in my end than her.
Got it.
And that's when I woke my sister up, because I was like, I don't know what to do. This is a Catholic family. We just talked about religion and belief system.
Yes.
This is a very Catholic family. I don't know. I know Lindsay had gone to church every day or every week, even in England. So I like, what do you say? And so I was pretty anxious that whole day. I may have even been speaking at her memorial, now that I think about it. I think I was speaking at it. So I was probably nervous about that. But the next morning, we got up, we went through breakfast. I'm with him, and all through my head, it's like, am I going to tell him? What do I do? And just before we went to get ready to go to the memorial, her mom asked if she could show me her room. And when I walked into the room and felt her and saw her in there, you really could. And then her mom said, I come in here and I sit because I can feel her here. And it's like, she's with me. So I took a deep breath and I was like, I got to tell her. Like, I just have to tell her. So I explained to her what she said. And her mom just gave me a big hug, and she was so grateful, because they didn't know if she hurt later on, because some people died on impact. Some people died of heart attacks. So there was no way of knowing what her experience was at that point. But later on, they were able to discern how each person died. And it was true that she would not have had pain. She was one who died almost instantly before impact. So that was confirmation. And then also I told her about this material that I didn't understand, the fabric, what she meant. And her mom's like, oh, I'm starting a quilt with all her old t-shirts and cloths that were. And so she showed me the quilt. So that was powerful for me now as a spiritual reader, because I didn't go right on to doing readings, but that was sort of stepping over the threshold to, okay, this is something that I can do. It's received, if I ever, I didn't know how to do it, like at that point, as far as not having it just be spontaneous. I had to learn that later, but I think it sparked that path for sure.
Yeah, so that opened the door for you.
Yeah.
Wow. So you started as a social worker. That's what your first steps
Yeah.
were.
Yep.
into-
I have a master's degree in social work. So I was in my undergraduate at that point, and then I went on to get a master's degree in child and family, well, social work, therapeutic social work with an emphasis on child and family therapy.
Right. So how did you shift from that to becoming a podcast host and the myriad of things that you do? Because to tell you that I mentioned in your intro how many podcasts that you do. You have so many different outlets. It's amazing. I mean, you're very prolific and you're very creative in all the ways that you bring through, your spiritual teachings and with guests and with your own interests.
So the journey from social work to, from that point on, probably, because even in college, I wanted to integrate spirituality. And as I learned metaphysics, I wanted to integrate that early on. I was taking comparative religion classes in undergraduate and stuff. So that was always another passion. And when I started working, right in my very first job after my master's degree, it was in my first supervision with my new supervisor, and she mentioned this meditation classes that she goes to in this metaphysical church. And I was like, oh, because I didn't know how I was going to find to study this. Like, oh, okay. So she took me to that, and then I ended up studying and becoming ordained through that church. And so that was years of learning a lot of metaphysical teachings. I would say it resembles the mystery school from the older days. So it was, I've grown and evolved in my understanding from there, but it was absolutely a great base between social work, therapy, and those metaphysical studies. That was a wonderful foundation for me. And then my next job was working with the Onondaga and Oneida Nation. So the Haudenosaunee are known by others as white, or known by white people as the Iroquois. So it's the indigenous people of the area. So I worked a lot with them, and then integrated a lot of that work as well. I was a therapist with working with those two communities as well. And eventually I felt like I was sitting on my hands, because I was a Reiki master at that point. I was teaching guided meditation, which I was able to do in my last job with Oneida Nation. But it felt like therapy is great, but you can only talk things out so far. And I had all these tools to release things energetically, to help people overcome grief by communicating with their loved ones. And so 23 years ago, I left the mainstream world and just started doing Reiki and readings, and evolved from there. But my passion has always been to normalize it. And to make people understand that these are our natural abilities. We just have to relearn them. Just like we're born with the ability to do math or to read, but we still have to learn how to do those things, learn the language. So that's probably where the podcasts come in. I did my first one. We were still calling them radio. Well, actually, I did one before that, which we were like just, in your own home doing.
Really? Before Zoom?
Way before Zoom. And then I did, my first one was Enchanted One on Co-Creator Radio Network. And then that got, what is it called? When it joins
Soulivity?
No, Soulivity was way on. So there was, so there was that. And then that, the Glastonbury radio started, also syndicated it, that one. And then I did a podcast on Live Sense8, which my partner Zach and I
Oh,
have.
yes.
We went through each episode of the network series Sense8 and then applied the teachings that I do to those.
It's quite interesting. I listened to one of your interviews with Fisher. I can't think of her first name. Was it Fisher?
Sandy. For all those Sense8 people, she was the bad mom.
Yeah, and that was a great movie. If anyone wants to watch that, Sense8. It's still in Netflix, I think. You could watch it.
It is. They're actually promoting it again. So the series is over, but it's available on Netflix.
It's an unusual start. I remember it took about 3 seasons to get into it, to really understand what is going on here. It's
3 episodes.
Everything everywhere.
The first 3 episodes first.
It was hard. But you were very big on it, and you brought through all your understandings. You had a whole program.
We went through every episode. It's been off the air now for a couple of years, but we still have the last 2 episodes, and I just haven't put them up. So I know I need to do that. Fans are still begging us. I don't know why I haven't.
Maybe you're waiting because maybe if they bring it out again, they're going to do something different.
Maybe.
Maybe shifting an ending. I remember
we got to see the finale. There was a finale at the end when it shut down, and then they did an extra finale because they hadn't closed it at the end of the season, and then it didn't get picked up. And so that was like in a movie form, and we got to see that the premiere in
that's fun.
Chicago, and meet the Wachowskis who did it, Lana and a lot of the people there. Yeah.
Well, you were in the movie world too. You're in everything.
I just really want to make it mainstream. I want this to just be a part of our lives.
Well, yeah, because Sense8 is sort of like looking at an incredible multi-dimensional part of ourselves that you would never imagine could happen, and the way it affected those people, the way they put it into like a way of showing it. It does take a while to understand what's happening, but once you do, it's like a miracle. Like, oh my goodness, this is what's happening. These people are literally showing up in each other's lives in ways that nobody would imagine. It was just, I remember the first time I tried to watch it, I couldn't get it. I didn't get it. My husband and I shut it off. And so then someone else says, oh, you have to watch it. Hang in there. So I did, and we both did, and we loved it. We loved it.
Yeah, I had a friend who was in Australia, and it came out there sooner. So she was like, you have to stay through the first 3, like make it. And then if you watch the whole series and go back and you watch those first 3, they were incredible. I mean, they are so incredible. I haven't
done that in a while.
Yeah.
And people are addicted to it. I know I have one friend who said she's watched at least 5 times.
We got into the fan base, and we've met people from around the world, and not just the actors but other people, and it's changed people's lives. They have Sense8 cons, like they do Comic Cons and stuff.
That's so interesting. Well, now this new movie, the Everything Everywhere movie, that won an Oscar, I guess.
It won all of it. It won.
Did it?
It won Golden Globes and Oscars, and and
that's a really wild movie.
It's so good. Yeah.
I have to watch that.
Have a huge budget to start with either.
Yes.
They filmed almost all of
that.
Not
an easy one either. It's not easy to understand either. It's one of those you got to watch a couple times at least because it's tricky.
Yeah, my daughter watched it. I think she watched it and she said the 4th time is unnecessary. She watched it.
Okay, so 3 works. 3
was good.
Yeah. Well, I watched it once. I probably could watch it again because it is that so much happening that you can't grasp it all in the beginning.
The first time it's just like taking you on this emotional journey and you just ride it and you don't really think, but that's beautiful in itself. Like you don't get that back the second time. Although I did more than I thought I would. The second time I saw it, I was noticing more things, but I still had that ride. Yeah.
Well, that's as far as I can go. I can say I watched it, and I'd probably have to watch it again if I really wanted to talk about it more.
That's okay.
Because it's tough. There's
not much you can say. It's everything everywhere all at once.
So, I remember how beautiful it was. I was looking at when your connection with your children when they were young, you could connect through telepathy with your children. So just, you obviously had telepathy yourself very young. Or how did you know you had telepathy? How did you even know it was working in your life?
Oh, I mean, I guess I did as a young child and didn't think too much about it. But by the time the kids were young, I was already playing in that energy and just wanted to try it more with them. And we were teaching about all the different aspects of it, of life. Like they were learning everything. They lived with me. I worked from home. Like this is what we got, right? Like they knew all of the different frequencies that we were moving through. They talked about it all naturally, even when they were young.
Because you said your son is a star child and your daughter is an old soul. Is that how I sort of heard you say that in other shows?
Yeah. My youngest child, Justin's identified when they were younger as a star child. That's what they like to be called. I had been taught about it as like a seventh root race, which I don't really love that that name, but the idea is that they're just pure essence of oneness and they're here on earth. And so Justin was actually born with violet eyes, which was one of the indicators that they had when I was learning in metaphysics, that they talked about that with. So
how convenient.
And then Sarah's an ancient soul.
She's a what?
An ancient soul. She was dealing with past life issues when she was young, of trying to process. So yeah.
So beautiful. So beautiful that your connection with them. You had such a deep connection with your children even as they were young. And not all parents do, especially in this work. It's not easy to always connect them to what you're doing. I mean, for me, I had a little bit more difficulty, but I know you did do some great things. So thank you for that. And you were talking about your children in telepathy, that you had, they had some gifts with that as well. How did you recognize that?
Well, the one time in the grocery store, Target, Justin came and found me and said to me, I was in electronics and I saw you in the cards, so I thought I better come over. And I think they were like 8 or 10, just old enough to be able to be in the same store, but not right near me. But we just talked about it as if it was natural whenever they were growing up. And so my oldest is Sarah, and she is an old soul. She was born old and could not wait to grow up. I think she's kind of catching up to now, and she's 27. So, but Justin remembered touching down once when the dinosaurs were here. But really? Other than that, they remember being on Pluto.
Wow.
And just pure. It's hard to explain. Sarah's brilliant with so many ancient old memories. And then Justin is this just pure energy of knowledge and love it's not influenced by lifetimes of being on Earth.
So he's a younger soul on Earth.
No, it's not a young soul. It's like a pure drop of oneness so there's a lot of wisdom, but it's not wisdom from having done the cycle over and over again.
The earthly
very
side.
Fascinating to see the difference. Very easily does many things. Everything comes pretty effortlessly. Justin works very hard, but it's easy for Justin to work hard, I guess.
Okay. It's just the way he is. It just his natural way of being. Yeah. That's really, the part that you could connect with your children so young is a gift. It was such a gift for you to have. And you could, because a lot of parents, couldn't do that. They'd either shut the child down or they'd, think there was something different, but some do. I mean, there are obviously people like you, and for me, I don't think my spirituality woke up when I was probably in my late 30s or early 40s. I was a late bloomer. I mean, I was always into very unusual things when I was young, but of course it was never going to be acceptable in my family. Like I would have thoughts kind of like I remember levitating friends in my basement. Nice. And I thought that was natural.
Right.
I mean, I think to me, it was natural,
Yeah, it was a trend, wasn't it? Like you
Yeah, it
couldn't
was.
wait
I mean,
to get
I couldn't believe it. It was like magic. I mean, when they
right.
literally rose up, I mean, they rose,
Yeah, that's really cool.
and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool that it's actually happening. Didn't question it as maybe magical, it was just, oh, this is
It was
cool.
just
It
something,
works,
right?
But then, and then different things would happen, but nothing as significant as you. I think it was just kind of held back because,
Yeah.
life was different for me then. But it's powerful that you have that to share with your children. So, and I know you believe in imagination. So this just plays right in with your children and the way, you live your life. So why is imagination so important to you?
I believe imagination is the gateway to all of this connection and to your multidimensional aspects, to your higher consciousness.
Mhm.
And I mean, to tell you how important it's been. My mom was a nursery school teacher. My dad was a clown in the Shrine Circus.
Oh my goodness.
And then I went in, and my master's degree is in child and family studies or social work with a specialization in play therapy. So, this has been something that I knew was a gateway to our psyche as well as our development. And it was guided meditation that first allowed me to really connect on a conscious, regular basis when I was studying the metaphysics. And that is all imagination. And so by opening up to your imagination, you are allowing it. Let me put it this way. Everything we do begins with imagination, even in the physical world.
Mhm.
So if you get out of bed, you've already imagined being in the kitchen drinking your coffee, or or even if I say go get that piece of paper across the room, you're imagining yourself doing it before you go and get it. But it's such a split second of imagination that we don't pay attention to it. So what I think is one of the biggest obstacles for people when they move into higher levels of consciousness is they'll say, how do I know it's not just my imagination? And so people will block things. They'll block their communication. They'll block meditations because they want it to not be their imagination. But you can't get there if you don't let it begin with your imagination, just like you can't get across the room without imagining it. So we have to slow down. We have to give ourselves permission to allow the imagination in. And then once we let the imagination lead us, it starts to prove itself. It's like going back in high school when I made the decision, well, I'm just going to believe in life after death. And then that proved itself because I didn't stay in the questioning of it. I could still be sitting here at this age saying, I don't know, is there life after death? I mean, to be honest, I don't really know if there's life after death. There's something, and I'm able to communicate with people who have died, and I'm able to get information from people that I have no connection to.
Right.
So there's something, but do I know for sure what that is? I mean, I've been shown a lot, but I'm not going to know till I die like everybody else. I mean, they can tell you things, but it's still coming through that lens. So it's not a, what is it going to be like? It's what is it now? And how can you explore it?
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense to me because when I was young, people would do things a certain way, but I would push the envelope. I would think ahead. I'd go, I was imagining, like you're saying, another way to do it. Like, why do I have to do it that way? When I think this way is so much more interesting and it's not the way they do it, but I want to do it that way. So I would do it. And I love that. I love that I always remember thinking, how do you think like that? Why are you thinking like that? But I would still do it anyway. It's like, well, you're not really following the rules, Janet, but it's okay. It's never been a problem. I'm still happy, I'm enjoying my life and I'm doing what whatever, you're following your path, whatever that is at the time. But it was just, it was fun. It was fun that way. I didn't like thinking in the box. I always wanted to be out of the box. So that's what I always think of imagination. But isn't that what we're meant to do? We're meant to be playful, like your whole family. Their whole theme was play and joy. Where you came from. I mean, it's so spectacular. Your father being a clown for the Shriners. I mean, that is so fun.
Yeah, that happened when I was a teenager. And at first I wasn't so sure about it, but
Right. Of course, it's embarrassing,
it
right?
was cool. And then when my kids got to be in the circus as little kids, because
Oh, wow.
they were able to go in and they let the clowns bring in their family, and so they were all dressed up and got to be in the
That's
Shrine
cool.
Circus. So yeah, that's pretty
Oh
fun.
my goodness. Yeah, so you've had imagination in your family forever. So I
Yeah,
can understand how you can really treasure it and really understand how it's affected your life. And I think it's important for all of us, because what they say right now is we have to be like a child. We have to
right,
have that wonder and
right.
that, allowing things just to kind of unfold. That's the new word. I mean, that word's been around for a few years
Right.
now,
But
unfolding.
if you go back into the Bible, even that's Jesus said, the children, you have to become like a child to
Exactly. Yes, I
so
remember that from there.
it's
Yes.
in there.
I know it is. I remember I wasn't a real Bible reader, but I love the stories that when the nuns, I had all nuns. I mean, for 12 years I had nuns, believe it or not. And I don't know why, but I chose it thinking it was the better education, but actually it was kind of a stilted education.
Yeah,
It really wasn't the real world. So
right.
it's too much of a closed environment. Wasn't really what we needed in life. I think it was a little too, that's why I think it's falling away now,
Yeah,
unfortunately, but it is
yeah.
because it's too unreal. You need to have real world skills,
Hmm.
get out in society and be able to manage it. So anyway, so you learned about, you love imagination, and you talk about what are our multidimensional aspects that you like to connect with, and why are they important to embrace?
Right. So, I mean, I think that if we are talking as simply as our physical body, our emotional body, and our spiritual body,
Mhm.
um, that's multidimensional, right? Our
Okay.
personality, like we're different when we're in conversation with one person than we are with the other, though we carry ourselves through.
Mhm.
There's going to be little different parts of ourselves that come through. But when you look beyond the physical
Mm.
and beyond the emotional, and understanding the concept that we are all one, that we are part of oneness, that there is one energy, that science has even shown this, there's one energy that connects us all, and we are all part of that. And when we move from that to who we are as a human, there is a whole bunch of frequency in between, a whole
Mm.
bunch of dimensions in between that, like the dimensions where we connect with our loved ones who've crossed over, or if you work with angels and angelic beings or masters, there's that frequency. And so when you learn to connect with the different frequencies of who you are consciously and learn to bring them into your daily life, it makes everything easier, because now you're not in this limited box. Like, you don't like box, right? Like, we do a lot of our human experience in this very confined space with limitations when we don't need to, because we have access to all this other dimensions of ourselves.
Yeah, I was listening to you talk to Miguel Luis Jr. Is that his, or
Yeah.
Luis Miguel? Maybe it's backwards. I don't know how I said it. But anyway, he talked about how we get into, what is the word he used? It was, oh, I had it written in my phone and now I shut it off. But there was a word
He
he
likes to
used.
talk about domesticated thinking.
That's what it was,
Yeah.
domestication. I love that. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
And you're talking kind of like that too. That's what
Right.
domestication is. Now he used that word. You're using, well, you're saying that you don't need to be domesticated. You want to
Right.
connect to
You
your
can move
multidimensional
beyond
aspect.
that and
Yes.
connect to the divine frequencies
Yeah. And
that
when
are
you're
you. And it's
domesticated,
easier than you think, especially with imagination.
exactly, it is. So do you connect with any galactic beings? I mean, are you connected in that way? Are you, yes. Do you
Well,
have,
my youngest child remembers being from Pluto, so I guess
right, right. Does he have any, well, then,
but yes, there I connect with
that for
galactic beings.
sure. But what about you
Yeah.
personally? Are you, do you have any connection to any galactic heritages that you're aware of?
Um, I
Or do you go
I
there?
have some memory. I've had some memories of Atlantis. And then I connect with the a council is what I call it. I mean, they've been by different names with different studies that I've done, but you know, the Galactic Council or Confederacy, I do connect with them. And then fractal illumination is a technique that I do with my partner Zach, and that is got Lemurian energy in it as well. And the night that was downloaded to us, I saw what I said was a galactic being, but by the end of the night, I recognized it also as Metatron. So I think that a lot of angelic beings are, I think that it's not as separate as we think. Once we move into those frequencies, it's not as divided between galaxies as we think, I guess. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So what did you call a fractal? What did you call it?
Fractal illumination is
Illumination. Okay.
Fractal illumination is a gift, is an energy technique or modality that was brought in. And it's not about healing. It's about helping. It's an energetic upgrade to help people harmonize with the shift. So it kind of upgrades the DNA so that this shift of consciousness that is happening in our atmosphere and in our world is easier to move through.
Oh, wow. That sounds wonderful. So what have you seen people, what are the results that people have been sharing with you?
It's interesting. We do have a book coming out. We're part of a book, and Fractal Illumination will be in it. It's the Energy Healers Oracle, and it comes out in June of 23.
Yeah.
And we have one chapter in it. So it's it's 20 different modalities.
Yep.
And Fractal Illumination is in there. We tell the whole origin story, which is
excellent.
pretty wild.
I bet.
And we talk about it. But so we've been doing it now for, I think, 9 or 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And people have had a lot of different reactions to it. From simple things from health to having that shift in consciousness. Early on, one of the most profound things when we had received it and we were learning with spirit how to use it, my friend's father was in like a coma state in the hospital, and they didn't know what was going on. He was I don't know if it was officially a coma, but he had just been like asleep for days and incoherent. And so we were just trying it long distance for the first time. I'm like, hey, do you mind if we, give this a try? Because we were still learning how to use it. And she's like, sure, why not? And so we sat down and did it from our house to the hospital, not telling her when. And just as we were done, we get a call, and she said her dad just suddenly came out of the coma. He just woke up and was like, he had no idea he'd been out. He just woke up and started talking. And we looked back at the timing, and it was while we were doing it. So that one's pretty profound.
Talk about bigger validation that this is.
I know. Yes. We got a lot of big ones. I think Spirit was like, we're going to make sure these guys, trust in us.
Got to continue this work. This is important work for you.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. So you're deep into helping people do their work through through Ascension Work, which I knew you were, but that is incredible. I love that. Yes, because I did DNA activations in the early 2000s. I even did one on my son when he was 15. When I learned it, I said to him, who in the family wants me to do a DNA activation on them? And he said, okay, I will. And I was like, all right, So I did it on him, and I could see the universe light up in him and all kinds of really cool things. And I just knew something had shifted, and so that was powerful. But now you're doing this. I mean, the fractal thing is a whole nother world, because I remember when fractals came out, it was like another way to bend your mind to think in a whole new way.
Right. Yes. And I think that's a lot of what happens, on the actual day, people, might get sleepy, a lot of giddy, a lot of laughing. And
is that right? Well, that's special.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because it's supposed to be easy,
Well, see, that'll entice people to check it out, because I mean, who doesn't want to move into
laugh, right?
Especially after all we've been going through for the past 3 years, right? So we're ready for some giddy, we're ready for some fun, and that's important. I mean, I think the world is lightening up, well, sort of lightening up. So what else do you want, what should else we talk about? I mean, you've found natural ways to stand in your sovereignty. And, you know, I don't know, any other way you want to talk about that, how you came into that, and how do you see humanity rising into that themselves?
Okay. So there's a lot there.
That is a lot, but
There's a lot there.
pare it down to what
So as far as how I came into it, for me, it was a gradual process. I did have an earth relationship with my twin flame for many years, and then he crossed to the spirit world. So for those of you people who do know about twin flames or talk about twin flames, that's an intense gateway into higher consciousness, really, because you're with a soul energy that is a part of you. So you experience oneness because you're in two different bodies, but there's this knowing of this oneness. And then there's a reflection on earth and a mirror to you that you can't hide anything from. So you have to learn, you know, you have to see
that's
yourself.
very difficult, isn't it?
Yeah. So that was part of my journey. But you know, that, and then working by doing readings for so many years and channeling for so many years, that definitely helps to bring you into consciousness. And I was teaching meditations. So between all of that, I did create Consciously Awesome, which that program, the Gnostic Adventure, it's like I said to you before with the levels of consciousness, it's a fun journey that takes people through the process that I went through for years struggling, right? But it's a way of connecting to your soul, crystalline soul energy, learning how to work there, which is just being able to communicate with loved ones, whether they're alive or not. You can talk to their soul. So it helps with relationships. It's where you can meet ascended master teachers and just really learn that communication. And then the next level up is what I call the vibrant new earth, and new earth is out there as a term as well. That's just pure imagination manifesting. It sets you free from being afraid of messing up. And in that space, you can create. And so it's like instant manifestation. And then we move into what I call the Sea of Solar Ra, which is that divine grace of Alpha and Omega. And we learn how to feel ourselves in that, and then to actually feel oneness. And each time you're integrating it into your body, and you're talking during the whole process. So your brain is actually learning to be active and on earth while in those frequencies, so that you can draw on them anytime. So that's how I got there and how I teach it. And then there's how humanity's getting there. I think right now humanity is getting there whether you want to or not. I think the energies are coming in so strong that it's this big tidal wave and you're getting washed up in it. So you're going to get there. It's which way do you want to get there? Easy or hard, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's profound. You put words to things that are always difficult to express. I've noticed that this is your way. You're very good about clarifying difficult concepts, because that was beautiful what you just shared.
Thank you.
Like,
Thank you. I have worked very hard at that, because we're talking about abstract concepts.
Very abstract.
It doesn't help if you can't get the word out about it. You know what I mean?
It's so true, because I remember talking when I was younger, you know, in my early days of being in this work, and I would always use the esoteric words. So when I was talking to somebody who wasn't esoterically inclined, she'd go, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They can't connect.
That is, that's something I've worked at. And in the Consciously Awesome Gnostic Adventure, which is the third draft from when I started as a spiritual mentoring class, and then it developed. But by this version of it, I have taken out all esoteric or dogma related words and brought in words that are neutral, so that people can then adjust it to whatever language works for them, but it doesn't separate you or bring with it baggage of what has been taught before. So that was my purpose for doing it in this way.
Well, you do an amazing job at it, and I really can see that, because I look at all the different things you share. When I've listened to your shows, your different shows, and you're just very clear. And I said, wow, she's got it. She's got it all, sorted out and figured out, and can share it. She can spit it out, as they say.
That has been my passion. So I really appreciate you telling me that I've made it to that point.
Yeah, because it's so clear. And I think anyone listening would just understand what you're sharing, even though they may have never heard the concept before, or, when you put it in those, as you said, neutral words. I think that's a great way to share. And I've had to learn to do that more, because when I first started, as I said, it was so hard it was hard to explain without those other words, because that's how I understood it. And that's how you started. And you said you just have to kind of filter it down to the level where everyone's going to get it.
Right.
Yeah,
And then
so
talk
good.
about it
So good.
naturally.
Yeah. So, and I know you do that amazing conscious meditation, which you brought through yourself. We'll just talk about that briefly, and then I know we're going to wrap it up. So tell us about your conscious meditation that you brought through.
So conscious meditation is an evolution from, like I said, I could not meditate when I was younger. In college, I tried like crazy, and it would make me so mad that I couldn't meditate, and I couldn't be hypnotized. I was in hypnotherapy. She couldn't hypnotize me. I went to one of those college things in the dorm where they try to put everyone under. I was hypnotized. Somebody tried to do tarot cards on me when I was in college. We were going around at my boyfriend's house at the time, and he gave everyone a tarot card reading. He pulled out mine, and he just went white ghost white, and like went in his room never came out, never told us why. I don't know what that was.
Really?
Yeah. So all of that was something I was wanting, but I couldn't get. And then when I got to the guided meditation in the metaphysical classes I took, that worked for me. And I was able to open up, and I was able to communicate. So when I went out on my own, I started teaching guided meditation. But when I noticed that people were leaving their bodies to meditate, that feeling of going up and being in that peace, but it wasn't changing their lives that much, because it's not integrated, and integration's always been my thing. So over the years, I developed a technique that is kind of a combination between guided meditation and hypnotherapy, because it takes you on a journey, but it's constantly being integrated back into the body. And during the process, I have you talk to me. Wow. So you're getting used to talking in a meditative state, because we want to be able to access them in our daily life. And so if we can't, we're not creating the brain connection, the neurons that are going to allow us to do that. So there's talking, and then there's integrating it in, and then an energy work that the facilitators do to help get you to the different frequencies. So conscious meditation will guide people to be in each of those frequencies that I talked about, and then explore in those. And then we take a lot of time to integrate it at the end with your eyes open and continuing to do the meditation so that your body is receiving it.
Yeah, because closing my eyes is usually how I do it, but that doesn't keep you always connected, as you say. But then I do automatic writing. I do a lot of automatic writing when I do meditation. That does kind of ground me in, because it's all, I'm using my body, and my brain is connecting, and yes, that's an integration, I guess I would have to say, for me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And what you do that's profound when you have them talk.
Yeah, it's great. And I have certain focal points that I'm teaching when I'm teaching the Gnostic Adventures, because I'm teaching you the map to get there yourself. But when we're in a session together, I don't know what we're going to do until we're doing it. So it's being shown to both of us.
Oh, sure.
Sometimes the person sees it before I do, and sometimes I see it first. And but it's always being designed in that moment. So we are following the meditation. I've never pre-written a meditation or done anything that wasn't just given to me at that moment.
So you're right there where we need to be right now. You've always been there. Like you've gotten there earlier. Let's put it that way, where everyone talks about being present. You got to be so present today to really be conscious. You've been there. You've been there all along. I mean, you understood that it was important to integrate it and then to make it very connected and integrated into the body, because we can't ascend unless we're grounded on this planet, correct?
Right. Yes. And I see it as, I kind of even moved my language away from ascension,
Oh,
because I
true.
realized
It's not
we're
even a
always
good word.
ascending. We're
Yeah.
just remembering, which you know
Yes.
too.
A
And then
better
even if
word.
we're looking at ascending, it's ascending and descending at the same time, because we want
Yeah.
to bring those energies down into our physical life.
Yes, I read about descending, and then one of my friends is like, "Oh no, that's dark. That's going into the low levels." And I'm like, "No, no, no, no. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right. Just bringing it
Descending
in.
into your body to be grounded in your body." And so she was only looking at it as one way, and I'm like, "No, that's not at all what I'm trying to talk to you
To
about."
feel, right, because you
Yes.
recognize
And
it as
so you're expressing that perfectly through what you do with your conscious meditation. So any final words and that you'd like to say for the rest of 2023 to people that they need to hear? Any kind, I know you stay very present, so how do you do all that? How can you do that?
Well, I think, when you said I was ahead of my time, and I feel like I was like
Yes,
waiting for a long
totally.
time. I used to feel like a horse in the gate, ready for the bell to ring,
Mhm.
waiting for the world to catch up. But I don't feel that anymore. And I'm telling you that because that's a great sign for the
It
world, because it's
is.
caught up or it's
Oh,
catching up.
wow.
And so because of that, we're still going to see chaos, because that's what happens when you transform.
Absolutely.
And the visual that I like the best right now for this year really is when I started using it a lot, is we use the visual of the butterfly going into the caterpillar going into a cocoon and coming out a butterfly for individual transformation. But if we relate that to the global transformation, and then take time to slow down and remember what that caterpillar must feel like when its identity is being stripped away and its
When they
parts are
turn to
falling
mush,
off
you
and
mean when they turn to
transforming.
mush?
Yeah, exactly. Like it feels like it's being destroyed at
Oh, we
times.
kind of are
Yeah,
being into mush a bit, aren't we?
yeah. So when you feel that in the world, remember that it's the butterfly growing, and put your mind towards the butterfly and knowing that cocoon's going to open and we're going to be here for it.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. I think that's going to give people so much hope, because chaos, the universe is naturally chaotic. So we have to go through that to come into the next level.
Right. And what's coming up, and has been coming up for a while, is all the stuff we buried. Just like if you're on your individual journey and you're healing, you're going to get all the toxins out. Yeah.
The world shadow as well as our personal shadows.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what we have to work on. So continue. If you don't know what to do with your shadow work, there's definitely a couple people here that can help, but for sure Sheila has got some amazing ways of connecting to that and to integrate it in a healthy way that you will love yourself fully all the way around.
Yeah.
Yes. So I know you have a gift, a special gift for the people that are listening, and you also have a special offer. So I don't know if you want to talk about it. Do you want to share a little bit?
Sure. Yes. So the free gift is audio meditation. It's got the frequencies and some of the technique of the conscious meditation in it. It's actually used as the very first meditation in the Consciously Awesome Gnostic Adventure. So, and we call it the bench meditation because it takes you to a beautiful park to communicate with your loved ones. And so through that, you can do that, and you can do it as many times as you want, and you can visit with different people until you really feel that technique. And remember that you can use it with the soul of people who are alive, or you can use it with a teacher, or you can use it by connecting to a soul of someone who has passed over. And it just guides you on this gentle journey. I always say, just imagine you're like a child listening to a storybook and let it come alive.
Oh, wow. That sounds beautiful. And then your other offer, your special offer.
Yes, I'm giving a discount to anyone who would like to do a soul connection session. And so we talked about those earlier, but we have a promo code, Summit, all capital letters. So Summit 23, and that will get you a discount for your first session.
Thank you so much. And all those links, of course, will be down below after the, once the interview is finished, and it'll be on the email links that everyone gets. So thank you for that so much. And I'm going to just thank the listeners for, coming in here and listening. And we'd love to hear from you. If you have any comments, anything you want to share, any insights, any aha moments with Sheila that you might, want to share, please do. You can send it to me or to Sheila. And Sheila, I see you as the intrepid goddess guide, the eternal cosmic light for humanity, because you have been there, like you've always been there. And you now, as you say, we're catching up, which is so great to hear. And so it just shows things are really working and that we're doing the work we need to do as humanity is meant to. And we thank you so much for your relentless energy and your joyful attitude as you embrace your multidimensional selves. And you share that so beautifully. And you have incredible courage and stamina because you do so much. I think it's just incredible. So you have become the divine human rising, and you've been in that realm now for many years, really. So you're the consummate divine human rising, and you continue to recover your sacred truth with limitless joy and passion. And we're so grateful for that. And so thank you so much for being here. And the divine human is rising, and we hold unlimited potential and gifts as we create our new earth realities. And thank you again for your courage, Sheila, in stepping and owning your divine light, which has been my slogan for a long time. And as we raise our hearts frequency, know that we are nourished by the love of the universe. So I want to say thank you to all for being here. I am Yarra Atlantica Miller, also known as Janet Miller, and I will see you all on the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.